Aloha and welcome to another episode of Triple Blockheads. Makani, Frank, Marc, we are the Triple Blockheads and we're here to talk about offensive strategies. We had a couple episodes ago, we talked about defensive strategies, so we'll go ahead and flip it and reverse it and go to the offensive side of it.
Lay it down, flip it, and reverse it.
You know? We'll talk about selection of what type of offensive strategy that you should be using, what type of players and team structure, I guess, that you have and skills that you might have to select that. And then we'll kind of talk about some scenarios and how we want to drive and practice and develop those offensive strategies. Marc, where do we start with this and just kind of thinking about the selection of the strategy that would be most appropriate for your team?
Yeah. First, I want to just blanket. I feel like our defensive systems, most of them are pretty well defined, right? Yeah. Perimeter, rotation, middle up, right? There's general rules that are held kind of throughout. I'd say offensive system is more about creativity, right? How are you maximizing your strengths, mitigating some of your weaknesses, right? And getting the kids that you need to get kills the most amount of balls, right? So there's got to be some fluidity in how you want to do that. There's a lot of different ways to approach getting those things. We're going to dive into some of those, but I think the first thing you got to do here is a deep eval of your team. Where are you going to produce points? Okay. And then once we figure out this is my kid, these are my two kids that are my real point scorers. Now it's how do I get them the ball in a way that's unscoutable, right? How do you get the kid that gets 5 kills a set, a seam and a block still when everybody knows that they're going to get the set? So, we can dive a little bit more into how. I think one aspect that we think about is tempo, right? How fast can you run? Now, relative to fast middle, fast to the pins, fast back row attack, that's relative to the talent of your setter probably, right? And you can train your way into some of this, but hard to run a consistently fast offense with a slow setter. You know what I mean? So, again, that's part of that deep eval. The other piece that I would say is routes, right? Are we a complex offense? Are we a simple offense? If I have one big banger, I probably want to be a little bit more complex with cross plays and distraction and smoke and mirrors. You're just trying to draw some attention away from the fact that I'm going to set this kid 50 times a match. So how are you constructing your offense that way? I think initially those are probably the two main things that we're going to talk about is tempo and routes. I think a main concept to think about as a coach, regardless of the system, is how am I scoring points from all 3 quadrants of the court, from the outside, from the right side, and from the middle. And that involves back row and front row. So if my middle is not very terminal and we're not going to set her very much, how do I prevent the other team from releasing out to the go and having a double block on my stud all the time? Well, I need something that's coming up the middle that's going to attack, that's going to help hold that block in place, whether that's a bick, whether that's overload, your right side coming in front, just looking for those situations of how can I score points in those 3 quadrants that keeps my defense honest and allows for a little bit more balance and scoring to take place when you have that one kid. So a lot of different scenarios we'll keep going in, but Frank, what are you seeing in the club space, right? That practice time allotment's a little bit different. The turnover year to year, are you guys, this is kind of the offensive system that we run in the club and then we make variants off of it? Or do you guys have a club philosophy on offensive systems? Every setter wants to set about this tempo. I know you guys do a lot of subs between teams. Where does that fall in that process?
Try to keep the language pretty similar. And then I think our high school kids, when they're 15s, they're starting to actually learn tempo if they're not doing it in high school already. So there's an introductory amount of space you want to give that kid. And then I think everything else is kind of similar to what you talked about. It's just maybe more simplified because of not having as many chances to train. the routes were like teaching, outsides how to maybe come in a little bit more to the court. We're teaching middles how to run. We call them zeros, where you show a 3, then you hop into the 1 ball during your route. So that's really fun to like open the doors for those kids, to let them experiment with some of that stuff. But those are going to be more of our elite teams that are running more sophisticated routes. But there's also a lot of coaches on those teams that have setting backgrounds. So I think that's kind of an advantage for us in our club, is to have some people that got to do that when they were playing, or have the knowledge base to do that. But I think for most clubs, you're not, the clubs that we play against, you're not seeing a lot of crazy routes. You'll see some generic things from rotation to rotation. Yeah. Most of the elite teams that we play against, like you talked about, have at least one big banger that you see them, try and run them back row a little bit. They'll run her on the right side and the outside. So there's definitely some creativity happening there, and we do the same thing. But because of practice time, it's definitely a little more simplified.
I think the options are what you have at your disposal, right? And I think in as you get early in club, you have less options because you have less of those different differentiations that you might have, because they're still learning and developing, right? I know if you refer back to our attacking episode, we talked a lot about, feet to ball. Like that's like one of or even like our 3-word episode. Yeah. Like that's such a key to all these other things. But we keep talking about routes and approach angles and inside out, outside in, like all these types of things. What other factors as a coach can I develop to increase my options for some of these scenarios we're going to talk about later?
The one that comes to mind immediately is passing, right? If you want to run a fast offense, you need to be able to ball control. If you want to run a complex offense in terms of crossing plays and some like overload type stuff, right? You have to be able to pass. That in-system number is important if your success is based around in-system success. Now, if you run a super fast offense, the next question becomes like, how fast can you run from 10 to 15 feet? Like, how quick can I still make that set? Am I setting fast enough to still create a split, even if we're not on the net perfect? So I think we call that mid-system, right? So we have in-system on the net to like 7-8 feet. Mid-system is at 9 to 14 feet. And then out-of-system is beyond that, or non-setter contact, right? So how I like to think about it in those 3 phases, and how are we attacking and creating success through those 3 phases of the balls. In system, that's probably the easiest one to have success, right? Mm-hmm. I would love to be in system all the time. So would everyone else. That's not how the world works. So when we're not, how are we still being effective? I think that's probably even could be a completely separate system relative to what you're doing in system. You know what I mean? Your mid-system, out-of-system offense, where you're locating those sets. Do I want to set middles on 2s still from off the net? Just what are we doing to get the kids the balls that need the ball in a way that they can still score without a double or triple block just sitting on them?
That's the hard part for, I think, a lot of clubs who, aren't practicing as much as you guys, is how fast do I want to play without, screwing it up too much.
Yep.
Like I know that if I play this fast, I'll have more one-on-ones with my outside, but is my outside still going to get a decent swing on that situation? So I think that's the decision that a lot of club coaches face, is find the right speed for your personnel and also for the time that you had to train it.
I think that's fair, and I think the personnel is the big thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, and we'll talk a little bit about the type of players that you have, and I think if you have that big kid that is super high-low, a lot of pop, like you can get away with running a little bit slower offense just to make sure there's a nice hittable ball to where they need to be.
Absolutely. She's got to be able to rip, and if she jumps high enough to hit over the block, then tempo doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Yep. Like the only thing that would be the limiting factor is if you don't set her high enough, which we see a lot of that. Middles, with big jumping middles, if your other middle doesn't jump as high, like where is that set variance? How are you allowing them to go athleted out? But yeah, you'll see that same thing on the pin. And that's the Texas model from 5 years ago when they won the national championship. It was like, let's just set 4 balls because we all touch 11 feet and you don't. And
we're bigger,
we're gonna,
stronger.
Yeah, we're going to just out physical you. Like, that is a system in itself. Now, hard to have the people to do that system. But if you do, that's the easiest way, right? We don't need to set with tempo. We don't have to do any of that. Just let them go be athletes and go get it.
Yeah.
Random tangent, but here we are.
I think and before we get in, I want to talk, the scenario is going to be so interesting. I'm really looking forward to this part of the discussion. But I think from a setting perspective, I think having a setter being attached to all of the whys that they're setting is super important. Not just at the macro, at the system itself, right? But also the why in decision making in that moment, to that specific player, to whatever I'm in, mid or out of system. All those things really, really matter, because I think why creates conviction, and then that conviction creates consistency, and then I think that consistency creates higher execution, higher success rates, and higher efficiency. So I just feel like the setters here are going to be kind of I think it's almost an assumption, right, that they're able to deliver these balls,
Yeah.
into these scenarios.
We can, and when we get into the scenarios, we can talk about like what kind of setter you need to have to do, because some of them are decision based,
yes,
and some of them are execution based. Can I deliver the ball as fast as I'm trying to do, versus if we're running cross plays, can I make the correct decisions in the moment where tempo is less important? So little column A, little column B, right? Just depending on your situations, but different things call for different situations.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in the first scenario, if you will.
Okay. All right. Scenario 1. We have small pins. We have great ball control. We want to go fast to the go. Okay. Just under those 3 parameters, what are some things that we need to train? Like, what do we need to be good at to be successful in this system from all aspects?
I think you got to take advantage of having great ball control. So I would assume that you're probably training your middles a lot, and setter middle connections would be pretty significant for you, especially if you have small pins. The more production you're getting from the middle of the court, even if it's the BIC as well, I would definitely be training my pins who are a little bit smaller how to play off the BIC and how we can use the middle of the court to set up what we want to do with the smaller pins when they are front row. But man, if you got great ball control, you got some really good problems.
Yeah, that's a great problem.
It's a great problem to have. It allows you to really play around with things.
I think if you run and are showing tape on like successful go offense to the pins, I think you can be more deliberate in the middle. Like, you don't necessarily have to run like that 0 tempo middle, or like you can actually move them around, approach angles. Because if you've established that in either tape or where they're starting their base position, you have more of those seam that's already available. And I think you can then establish them in a different way and go inside, outside, and then say, hey, I'm going to get them a little cheating or at least looking inside, and then the go ball's way more successful.
Yeah. For me, if you're going to run a fast tempo, I'm no longer concerned about your in-system offense, right? You're going to have splits just by your system. Right. We look at Arizona State this year. They run like a 0.8 go. You're going to have splits because that's faster than humans can move. So you're either forcing a block scheme adjustment in those situations, or what you really see is we're going to serve the crap out of the ball against a team like that and try and get you to mid-system where I know the decisions you're going to make. So if I'm that in this system where I have small pins but I'm great at ball control, I'm probably going to focus a ton in mid-system, okay? And we're going to have to either incorporate BIC or set middle 2 balls from off net, something that's going to hold that middle blocker so that they can't just go out. And my small pin, because that's like the downfall of that system, right? If I have small pins, out of system is your enemy. Yeah. So
you're trying to turn your mid system into in system.
Trying to keep a split, right? Yeah. If especially because if I'm training in system that small outside, if we go fast, My training is, how do I attack seam? How do I attack seam? How do I jam and tip whenever it's too low for me to attack, right? It's all those like decisions because of the pace of your set.
Yeah.
So if that's my focus from training, then it becomes, all right, how do I still make that same training model purposeful from mid-system? Well, I'm going to have to set BIC. I'm going to have to do middle so that I still have that seam that I'm training this pin to hit all the time. So think about how you're structuring that way. And the big thing that we run into is like, if you are that fast go team, what do you do in your 5-1? Okay.
Yeah.
Because most teams are going to go slide in those 5-1 rows. Well, if you set a super fast go, I'm going to go double that go.
Yep.
And we're going to single that slide.
Yep.
And we're going to see what happens. You know what I mean? And that connection is like, most of the time you're not going to set that slide enough to beat a team. But that outside, 100% can win a match by themselves. So I'm going to prioritize doubling that go. How am I, if I'm the other team, how am I making sure they don't get to leave?
Dump and BIC.
Right?
Yep.
Then it becomes the setter attack becomes super important, especially on that counter slide. If I can dunk a few to the donut, shout out Dunkin' Donuts if you want to sponsor. That's important, or that BIC is important, right? And you have to set it enough to force the middle to stay.
Well, I think too, like, I think you mid-system especially, if you are wanting to run that, establish that go, and to your point, in mid-system, it's going to be hard to run that slide. If you are going to run a 51 or a 5-1, you're going to have to establish some level of a push gap 31 type in the middle.
Stay in front.
Also, that D-ball. Like, if you can get, even if you're not running that BIC, if you have someone who's a middle back or in right back, if they come in, inside out from the BIC ball and just run that kind of behind, that pulls or at least creates some visual that someone's coming.
Yeah.
Because all it takes with that zero tempo, all it takes is just that split second to create that seam.
Yep.
And even in that gap, it's kind of counterintuitive. You overflow on that tempo. If you're running that 31 go ball, like, are you still going to get that seam as long as you're successful in showing it that it can be terminal?
Yeah.
The one other thing on this though is your out shot, and I think more specifically because in this scenario we're talking about small pins, fastball, small pins. There's not a lot of time to visualize that block and the defense. A lot of times the defense is still moving, which is what you want, but you also don't know where they're set. So in that situation, your outshot is extremely important to be successful. Talk a little bit about like how you train that.
Yeah. So typically, if you're running a fast offense, you're going to have one or two errors from your setter, right? It's either going to go wide, too fast. So I'm like reaching back across my body. What can I do with that ball? I'm swiping block, right? If it gets wide on me, I'm trying to use the block. So we're going to do a ton of fine hands, put it into the block and swipe off. We're going to do a ton of that. The second error that you'll see from setters from a really fast offense is that ball's too low and it dies inside. So what are we doing with that? I am an advocate of the 4-to-4 tip, especially on low. If I'm good getting my feet to the ball, I can wrap around and throw that ball to 4. I also think those balls that die inside, you're going to be like have a late middle diving into your space. So can I clear that middle and get it to the donut? Okay, just causing some issues. I'm not a huge fan of that inside low ball trying to throw it back to the line. That's where your blockers are. And if I've already beat them inside, there's no need to get them back involved with the play.
Yeah.
I'd say that's how I would approach my outshots on a fast tempo kind of space. So we need a 4-to-4, we need a donut throw, and then when that ball gets to the line, I need to be able to swipe.
Maybe a tunnel swing every once in a while, little inside, high up the middle, all the way to the tunnel to see if you get that. That's the guy thing to do, is step inside, step close, high swing right off the middle, and try to hit 15 rows up into the stands.
Tons of backspin.
Yeah. I'm not a huge advocate of the 50-50 ball, right? That's either a kill or an error.
True.
You know what I mean? And if we're not in a great situation, like one of those 2 aired set spots, I don't know that that's a great ball to take that risk on, when we could just stress them and maintain control of the rally. I think that's what I come down to, is like, if we're not able to put big arms on the ball, I want to at least maintain control of the rally, where I'm getting something that isn't an in-system attack coming back at us. If we can go, we get a bad set and I get them out of system, that's a win. And we're going to go defend from that out of system and go score. Yeah. So I would rather us take the 50-50 swing on good balls that are closed, right, out of system. That's a better opportunity. Like, you're going to have 4 hands. The odds of hitting those 4 hands when they're stationary, probably much better than fast go flying hands that you don't see as well. Yeah, to be able to swing into.
And I think not for this, but I think that there is a big difference in the men's and women's game on that too.
100%.
Right?
Well, yeah.
And
tips don't score as well.
Exactly. I mean, everything out of system is in system.
Yeah.
So, scenario 2.
Okay. Scenario 2. I have a huge killer. I have a giant pin, and I don't pass very well. Oh, no. In this one, we do pass well. Okay, I have a giant killer, and we're pretty good at ball control. So
sounds like a pretty good team.
What are some things that I would want to do in that situation? Okay. You want to go, Frank?
Yeah, I think you got to make everyone else around her better, and that from a skill point of view, how can you create more offense from everyone else, just a little bit more? And then I think your conversations with your setter are really important on her decision making and the type of routes that we do put the big killer on, and when we decide to do it. I think early on in this team's first 6 rotations when they play, how can you continue to be unscoutable going into your second or third rotation in that same rotation? So the very first time I'm in row 1, like, there should be, I think with this team, there should be a strategy in how we get other people involved early and save the big killer potentially when we need her. So if you can get offense from other people, like riding part of that, so that when you're into the 20s and it's still tight, you can ride your big killer, and it's maybe a little bit more unpredictable because of the way you've been making decisions early on.
I think if I had this scenario, I would be looking at my serve receive formations, and I would really try to support our offense through the formations themselves, to try to be more complex in our routes, try to give them a little more splits. Maybe if this person needs to be able to hit, pin the pin, like like anywhere along that pin, and you need to be you have to have some variation based on where you're doing. It can't be predictable. Yep. So I would be doing a lot of tape work on where do they swing out of first rotation. Rotation 1, they swing here. Rotation 2, they swing here. And how do I, as a setter, understanding that I need to move them around, knowing that they're going to be watching her. Just, I think, a different view, a different approach angle, a different route creates a little bit of a split. And if she's that one big killer, that's all they need.
Right.
And that's literally all they need. And then on that, I would say a lot of, okay, how am I using that big killer at the right time to pull the double to give me a one-on-one? And that other players might not be your best terminal hitter, but they're going to be a much higher efficiency if they're one-on-one.
Yep.
So I think at times you kind of use them as a decoy when the scenario is right and the scoring scenario is right, and then you can get other people going.
Yeah, a couple things to that I really like. The use of her as a decoy, and especially early in a set, I think that's huge, right? Especially from a club perspective, like, you've maybe watched them once or twice, you know who the key kids are, so you're going to start scheming to that right away, right? You know that kid's the kid. How do we stop the kid? Well, if you don't set the kid in FBK for the first time around and just give her transition balls where it's harder to scheme and plot and reset, like, she's going to get hers. You know what I mean? She's the kid.
I'm going to be thinking, did I scout this team right?
Exactly, right? So the first 3 FBK opportunities, you don't set her.
Yeah.
And suddenly now the other team's like, well, crap, because these other kids have now got one-on-ones, they've scored, and I also have in the back of my head that the kid is still out there. I can't leave her one-on-one.
Yeah.
So, like, you can open up a lot of flexibility if you just don't pay her as much attention in FBK, in that first ball serve-receive situation. Sorry, I'm using shorthand. But outside of that, like, you're going to have to set her, right? Especially that mid-system stuff. That's probably where she's going to make a lot of her money, is if we can run mid-system with some kind of tempo high enough that she can go be a killer. Like, that's where she's going to score a lot of her points. Now, other things I think are important if you have that one kid. Talked about moving her pin to pin. In row one, I would split. Give you some flexibility. We can run a D2 or a slide 2 ball crossing. She can run a 7, like an inside but behind set. She can run a 5. Right? Those are all different from just hitting a go all the time. When she does get to the left, I'm going to run her on gaps. We're going to run some 31 inside 2. Right? Make her able to swing at whatever the worst blocker is on that other side of the court. And you need to have a plan for how to get the kid into the spots to take advantage of the bad block setup or whatever. The other piece that I think is very advantageous to having a killer on the outside is running a super fast middle tempo. Okay? Mid-system, they already know where you want to go, so that's not as important. But I can pull a block by running 0 tempo. Yeah. Like, if I'm up before the setter, you just draw too much attention because of the speed that you're in visually. Middles will hold with you, right? Even if you don't get set very much, or even if you do get set and you just tip, that's enough, right? That's enough to keep that split open and automatic points coming from the kid on the outside. So I think that piece is really, really important as well. From a training perspective now, what am I working on? I'm working on everyone else scoring one-on-one.
Yep.
Okay, that's going to be my training. What's my right side? What are you doing one-on-one? And you're running into a similar situation in your 5-1 rows where how else can we score an FBK that's going to open up something for that outside hitter? Whether that's BIC or set or dump or middle in front to that 3, and if it's a really fast 3, maybe I pull both block and now I have somebody over the top. Like, where am I creating space through all 3 quadrants to be able to still score with the killer? And then ultimately, if she's a killer, we're going to just set her, and we're going to work on covering a lot so that she feels like she can go rip all the balls that she wants to.
Yeah. And I think at that point, when they're rolling and they're that one big killer, don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes I think we get, they're rolling, they're hitting 800, and they're like, all right, we're going to move you around and all this. Hard pass, let's move everything away from her.
Yeah, right.
And just give her balls to see how hot we can roll her.
Yeah.
2 things I love that you said there too is that I think the others are so important because you can get caught watching. So you have to be ready. You have to be prepared. You have to approach with the same intensity and energy as if you were going to get the same amount of balls the other kid is getting. Because if you don't, that one set that we got you the one-on-one and a flying ninja to that, now it becomes a transition ball that we're getting scored against.
Yep.
So that's the one thing. The second thing I love in this is that if you're running a 5-1, I also like to pass a little tighter, and that setter offense is just like a 0 tempo. Yep. Because it will hold that middle or hold that right, that left side, at least to think about it, to create another seam or another hard angle for that outside who is a dominant outside to find another spot to kill.
Yeah, 100%.
And our big killer has got to work on passing because she's going to get served a lot.
Served a ton.
She's going to get served a lot. So what do you do in serve receive to help some of that?
Yeah.
Yep. What do you do in serve receive to help some of that?
I mean, if she's
the
a good
rest of the team is good, but she is not a good passer. What do you do?
Well,
aside from not have her pass,
you pinch, right? You try to take away at least one move, so that if anything, she's just got to pass the ball coming right at her, or she's got to maybe pass the short serve if there's no one in front of her, or just the ball is to her left. Or
your right side has to be a primary pass. I mean, that's the big part, right? Is you're
probably
right
de-essing
side,
your right side, or unless your right side can pass. But in club, like, that's part of their learning experience too, right?
That's
like
true.
if we're not preparing this kid to pass, then what are we doing, you know?
That's true.
So it is a balance. I mean, it's hard when you're in
If it's
really
club,
competitive tournaments.
if I'm club, I'm probably just going to train her up. If I don't have the time, like college, I'm thinking of college. I'm thinking of one kid specifically that we just played against. She's a killer.
Yeah.
And like her platform is okay.
Yeah.
But I'm probably going to make her pass with her hands. If you're a killer, you probably have some size too. You probably are a good athlete. Let's take one step up, and we're gonna pass everything with our hands. And if we can't pass it with our hands, then it's not our ball. You know what I mean? Let somebody else go and let you flow out into the things you're doing. I think that's a great way to let a kid find some success, limit the amount of balls they're actually going to pass without taking them completely out of the flow from that serve receive to attack, which I think is a benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so rare for us being in a smaller town where like our big kids are actually small kids in college. So like, yeah, they're a big kid right now in our gym, but like when they go play Division I or something so super big time, it's like you're not the big kid anymore. Now you're the pin that's got to pass.
Yeah.
So making sure that we prep them for that is pretty important.
I think of the big kid as, you could be that 6'4", 6'5" kid, but I think you could be the 6 foot kid and just have a cannon.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
And honestly, if you had that 6 foot who just has a cannon, is that all of what we just talked about completely
Still
the same.
applies.
Yeah,
Still
so
applies.
it is so true.
Yeah. 3. I'll lead this, and Mark, you can kind of jump in first.
Okay.
Your middle is a stud. Lots of middle attacks options. How do we approach that in the mid system? And how do we ensure we continue to feed them the ball regardless of our passing situation?
That's the number one question, right? If your killer is a middle, how are we getting them all the things? One, I would say you need to train them to swing on a pin every once in a while. I think that's a great way to get them a ball where you don't have to be as good. The other things I'd advocate for is a lot of my training is going to be from setting the middle off the net. Okay, so can I be really good on a 31 from beyond 10 feet? Can I still set them on a slide from beyond 10 feet? Or if I get pushed forward, like, can I jack that thing around to get them some options? And then I think a very underrated set is the 2-ball. Like,
Yeah.
it's still hard for your wing blockers to get in to help on a 2. So we're still kind of looking at a 1-on-1 or a 1.5 where there's going to be a seam. And if your kid is a killer, just lob the thing up to them from over their shoulder, whatever. And I think about this one kid. We're going to cut this piece out because I don't want to name names.
Yeah.
But she would almost exclusively hit 2 balls. It was so hard to defend her. Like, if she could turn both ways around the block, if you scheme in, now suddenly you're leaving something else open behind. They would set her. Like, the only thing that was easier for us is in the 5-1, she didn't hit off 1 foot. So she was a 2-foot kid and stayed in front exclusively. Well, now I can commit a double to you or commit on you and still feel okay about getting out to the go. But man, can that be so effective and much easier to train than that really fast 31 from off the net, right? If we're going from simplicity and like, how do I set my middles in situations where I don't typically, I'm going to set them 2 balls. That's the easiest thing for me to train. It's the fastest thing to get results. They already know how to hit them, rather than, especially if maybe my setter isn't as skilled. That 31 from beyond 10 feet is a hard ball to set because it's a small hitting window that they're trying to put it into. And then the timing aspect and tempo of that set, right? There's a lot of variables.
Approach angle's harder to
that will factor in. Anybody can chuck a ball up to the middle of the court in a 2. You know what I mean? And then we just step close and go rip around. So big advocate of the 2-ball if your stud's a middle.
Yeah.
And you can set a 2-ball over to where the 3 is, and they call that a 32. Huh.
Okay.
But if you like the matchup with the right side blocker helping, maybe it's something to do.
I think the one thing that you can also do is move your location of where you want people to pass to more right shade. Because if you move it to a little more right shade, you're further away from the help block on the right side, from the right side blocker. You also then give more range, especially if your kid's a 2-foot jumper and you want to keep them in front. It gives you more space to do more things.
To run more routes in front.
Right, because you could do the zero tempo, or you can do the one right in front. You can do a little bit of a push. You can do kind of like a push and a half over. You can then do almost like a 32-ish, but more like a lobby 31 that's kind of not fringy into the middle zone.
Not quite in that 3 zone.
Because here's the thing I don't like around running your stud middle on a true 31 spot is that it's too close to the help, right? And if you get too close to the help and you don't run a zero tempo, then that person's just sitting there. Like there's no movement out of that right side blocker. So in that situation, you're like, I'm not really sure. But if you moved in shade, even if you ran a true 2L right on top in that right side, you're hitting against the middle and the left side blocker, which is a much more advantageous spot for your stud middle, more times than not.
That's true. I think another training component I would do a lot of is we call it running into natural gaps, right? So we put up noodles in the net, like this is where your middle blocker typically is. This is where your right and left blockers typically are. All right, these are your natural gaps that are going to be open 90% of the time in systems, unless they're fronting, shading, whatever. So when I'm thinking about transition and getting into space, right, it's less about space for my setter and what we're calling, right, A, B, whatever. It's more, I'm in this gap where nobody is. Can I talk my way through it and have that setter find me? So we talk a lot about that, and in our setter training, we talk a lot about setting into those natural gaps. So if you get pushed back, like we talked about in that situation, you're pushed back into zone 2, that natural gap is still going to be in front of you. A lot of people want to set that ball over the top to the go or make the easy set to the 5. The best ball there is to set your middle. If they can get to that natural gap, get on you, that's an easy split and lots of kills for them to have a lot of court space to swing into. So if my stud's a middle, we're going to be working a ton about running into space rather than running at a blocker.
Make that setter find you in the space you want to hit.
And make the blocker have to move, right? We don't want to run at somebody's base block. Anybody can block you if they don't have to do anything. The second you make that middle have to adjust a little bit, that timing of her move has to be perfect. Otherwise, we're getting splits all over the place. And the likelihood that she's going to dive and open up something that I can go bounce around is high. So I think that's a really important training tool if your middle is the kid.
I think also, you mentioned this around hitting a pin. I think most people think, all right, hitting your middle, hitting a pin, it's going to be on the right side. I think in row 3 and 4.
That's funny. I was thinking left.
So that's what I think too. I always think the left side because you're going to be over there, pushed over there more often than not.
Yeah.
So in row 3 and 4, especially if you're assuming that your M1 is you're going to be that kid, that in those rotations, really training your L2 and your L1 in those situations on what other things they can hit.
They can hit a 2. They can
hit a 2. They can hit maybe a little slidey back 2 or like something to pull, something to be terminal. Set them early so they just show that you will send them there so that you create that ball. It's an easy side out if you can get any level of that huge middle on a outside blocker on anything that's mid-system or in-system. So
I will say, though, as a recruiter, if you have a stud middle and I see them bang balls on the pin, we're going to be right back into our roll situation because I'm a recruiter and then be like, I think you're an outside. And then she's going to go to her club coach and be like, I think I need to play some outside. And you're going to be like, crap. I don't want to do that.
And then we'll change what we're doing in row 4, I guess.
Get back in the middle.
well, then she goes in the middle and goes pin to pin and just houses everybody. They're like, or maybe.
It is interesting though when this middle leaves the match, and now you have your M2 and like you're gonna have to design offense. You're gonna have a
completely different
set of priorities for those pieces.
Yeah. And then if the middle stays back to pass in the back row, now we're really having that conversation with the club of why are they playing in the middle?
Yeah, have you played against anyone
6-row middles?
Yeah, 6-row middle. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a few this year. I coached an HP team where I actually broed for the outsides and both middles played 6 rows.
That's fun.
They were both very talented players, just all around players. we did well that year. I think we finished second. But
That's fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was fun. I'm all for creative.
Next scenario is a lefty setter and a 5-1. I love this one.
Man, serve hard. serve as hard as you can when she's front row.
All right, what are you doing if you got a lefty setter? A like true, let's say she's 5'11", 6 foot, good turning on two. What are we doing offensively? What are we doing?
Whatever we want. We're doing whatever we want because we're gonna be so good when she's front row. No, you're using that to your advantage, right? She's a right side and a setter all in one, so it's like you definitely.
So are you running a 6'2"?
I mean, it depends on your personnel, right? Like, if it's a college team and she's our best setter, I'm probably running a 5-1. But if it's a club team and you want to run a 6-2, then that lefty's probably also hitting.
Yep.
And the other girl's setting. So I think it just depends on the makeup of the team. But these are like the most fun teams.
Yeah,
to put together.
I mean, these have all been good scenarios so far.
Yeah, lefty setter. I mean, you definitely want to encourage the kid if they don't realize it yet that they are a weapon with their arm. That's definitely a club thing. Is like when they get a lefty setter, like teaching them like, hey, this is how a lefty setter plays.
Yep.
And it's not just setting now anymore. It's using your dump a little bit differently. So
yeah, things
hard to play against.
Things I really only changes your 5-1 rows.
The front row,
right?
the front
row.
When she's in the back row, you still need to have your offensive system. I would still encourage her to be attacking, right? That kind of ambiguous. Am I above the plane? Am I not? I feel like refs tend to be pretty lenient with that stuff, so I would still have her attack a ton of balls, even from that six or from those from the back row rotations.
Yeah.
Offensively, you can do kind of whatever. Then it becomes about who your other hitters are. In the 5-1, I'm training a lot of transition, right? FBK, you can usually scheme for accounting for a middle, and you're going to end up one-on-one at the pins if that's the case. If you have an okay slide hitter and a dominant attacking setter, we kind of just have to go one-on-one on everybody and try and recover out to the go, and we'll probably just not worry about that slide very much. Okay. In transition, can I dig tight? Can I dig forward? Can I create, right? Can I pass into these natural gaps that we just talked about so that I'm able to turn? The easiest ball to get a kill on as a lefty setter is the transition ball that gets pushed into like 3-4, right? I get to run forward. Middles don't usually track at the right pace. And then I'm coming, and then I'm turning
Kaboom!
From a slide. It's like lefty slide approach, and I get to go off 1 foot and turn and murder that ball. That's my favorite. That's my favorite hit.
10, 11 feet off
time.
Just that perfect tempo. Yeah.
That's my favorite ball to hit. And if you can work on passing some of those, especially in free ball situations, you're going to find a lot of success doing that kind of stuff. I think the other one to really work on is if you get pushed back. So I get pushed back, that natural gap's in front of me now. Can I get my feet in a position to still take a swing at that ball?
Yeah.
Those are huge. And then the other ones to work on are attacking off net, right? If I get to 5-6 feet, generally what's going to happen as I come off the net and I don't think that setter's going to attack, I'm going to release as a blocker towards that go. So now the middle of the court is open. Can I still hit that ball? Because that will force that middle to have to stay, and now your pins get to score one-on-one because you still are attacking. I think a good statistical measure for that setter, that 5-1 setter, we want to be 2 kills a set. Like if you're a lefty, a really aggressive attacking setter, we need 2 kills a set from you. And hopefully you get more than that, but just as a season average, we're looking for 2 kills.
Yeah, and I think for the roles that are not that lefty setter, the outsides and the middles, obviously you said it, slides, like really lean to the side. When they're in the front row, you need to go pin to pin as much as possible.
Yep.
I think as that setter, outside of being aggressive in the front row, really being cognizant of the base position of the wings, because those pin blockers will tell you where we need to how we need to deliver those pinballs to maximize that one-on-one that we're going to get. Outsides, especially though, we need to really work on our approach angles and our routes, because we want to be able to run like a rip or an inside, because if they're going to stack outside, knowing they're going to be one-on-one, no help anyway, that you need to run that ball, a little lobby inside, maximize that into that 5.
Yeah, let them jump into that space.
Exactly.
Get inside that block. I mean, most one-on-one blockers are going to try and take away the middle of the court. Like that's what they're taught overall. So how are we allowing us to still swing into the biggest portion of the court effectively? Like the thing I don't love is like what we're trying to do as blockers is I want you to swing down the line if you're in a one-on-one. And if we do that, we did what we were trying to do, right? I'm going to give you the smallest area to swing into where we have one defender that's sitting there waiting for it. To counter that, right, how do I set that one-on-one to allow them to have more court space? Now we're talking tempo, we're talking set location, right? Just allowing them to attack into the largest portion of the court. I think what you said about pin to pin is important. I think in that 5-1, I would also overload. I would go 31 setter, right? It's about the 3 quadrants where right? How do we have attacks in the 3 quadrants? So if I don't want that middle to be able to help on me, I'm going to push them out, right? Most people in a 5-1, if your middle stays in front, like push to that 31, they're going to front out because it gets them closer to the go, right? So now it's you versus one person that is generally not a great tracker, not used to being on the setter all the time in that 5-1 if they're used to having to go with the slide. So now it's like if I get pushed forward at all, I am hitting that ball, right? She's going to be trailing me and I got an open net. I'm going to just wreck that thing into right back.
And if you really want to make that left side spinning on their head, really train that D ball. Now you put her really in this conundrum, because now you have an overload. You have this person who has an active setter. You have a true 3-hitter offense on that in that situation. Now you have the ability to be determined on the D ball. Now that left side has to pick and choose, or it's gonna be a flying ninja to the back on the D.
That's what I would do. Like I'm gonna set up inside on that D, and that's gonna be an afterthought. Like the percentages typically don't tip way out in a way that dictates that I have to pay attention to that D. If your setter's the first active, then we got to defend the setter. And then we will defend whatever comes out after. But most of the time, that D is at 8 to 10%.
Yeah, it's not the tempo that I think.
And it's not men's game fast for the most part.
Exactly.
You have time to recover to that. Whereas that setter's going to get on it fast, and we got to be ready to go on the defensive side.
All right, so not so fun scenarios.
I was just gonna say though, like that's why we're serving. That's why we're serving hard.
So
we're serving hard.
You gotta get them out.
We're gonna try to eliminate one of those things you just said.
So I think in general, if you have your passing is not your strength, how do you think about formulating your system around a lot of out of system, or a lot of, at best, a little bit more mid system than in system?
We're gonna serve hard and even the game. Now we're both bad passers.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yes.
I think attacking decision making is really, really important from an outshot perspective. So if I know we're not a good passing team, or we're going to be in that mid to out of system space a lot, I have to keep them in a mid to out of system space. And then when I do get balls where I can rip, I'm going to go rip. So that's throwing zone 1, tipping short. Like I need probably 6 or 7 shots in my bag that I can go to at any time.
Yeah.
An important one, maybe the most important one, is going after the block. Like we cannot be block avoiders. Blocking is one of the hardest skills, if not the hardest skill, and something that is like the best teams in the country are getting 3 points out of it a match. So how many times does a block touch a ball over a set versus how many times are they actually blocking it? Like I'm going to go rip at a block out of system. We're going to work on that all the time. High hands, outside edge, seam right hand to that middle, right? Just be specific with how you're training that tool attacking, but that becomes paramount from an attack perspective. Now, if my setter's pretty skilled and we're not a great passing team, I'm going to encourage her to set against grain more often than not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Can she athlete her way into some splits for us, especially in mid-system? And if she can't, then then it becomes the decision making, right? All the IQ training becomes about the pin there. And then we're going to work a ton on passing because I want to get better. I don't want to be out of system all the time. And not passing perfect balls, but can I pass a little higher? Can I work to narrow my spray? We talk about that a lot. Is like there's a big difference when you look at where you pass to in terms of like court spread versus like, is it more middle concentrated, but just off the net? You know what I mean? Like that's what we would try to strive for rather than spraying balls all over the place. Can we just contain and pass high, even if that means we're at 15, 16, 18 feet off the net, but it's high into the middle? We can live with that. We can do some stuff there.
Yep.
And if you have an athlete, a strong setter athlete that can jack the ball around, right, that's enough probably for you to still find success.
I think in a team that you have this, your skill set is that you don't have elite passing skills yet. Like you're still developing that. So I think this is probably the one thing that the scenario that a coach can really, really impact the success of the team. And I think while you're working on that, I think you need to find ways to show that the team that can succeed the way that they're passing just somewhere in the middle of the court, right?
Yep.
Make it some level of a 2-pass. That's your goal. If you can sneak into a 3, cool. But our system is going to be running this 2, and we're going to scout the heck out of the other team, and we're going to maximize the advantages that we have. This is the coaching part. Where is the weakest blocker on every single rotation, and every single player needs to know that, right? Regardless of out of system, I'm going to attack that. Where do they struggle defensively to stay in system? Because the goal here is maybe not necessarily to be terminal in that first contact, but is to bring back advantage in transition. So that FBK becomes that ball, our pseudo attempt to score on that first contact. That if we're in serve receive, we're really trying to we're going to use this. If we score, fantastic, but we're going to make sure that we get either FBK, roll shot, something predictable, that
just
we can
not get aced.
just don't get aced. And I think that if you see success there, it alleviates pressure on your passers because you're seeing success in how you're doing it now. Which then I think sometimes when you're not successful and not terminal and you're not passing well, and that happens, kind of as what your team is constructed, your passers actually struggle even more and harder to get out of it because there's more pressure to keep it there.
Because we're not scoring.
Right.
When we're out of system, mid-system, it's like I have to be good now for us to get a point. And we don't want that creeping into passers' brains. So that's never a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. No, I totally agree with all that. It's like how do you turn your mid-system 10-foot line pass into in-system play, whatever that looks like for your team. So, yeah, I mean, if the goal for the passers to get on the 10-foot line, that's a much more attainable goal than passing it perfect right in the net. And that's usually a huge discovery for our club kids is learning that they don't have to pass front right is like not the most ideal ball right in the net. It's like living on the 5 to 6 foot line is a much better place to be. And like having our setters in serve receive rotations, having our setters, if it's like row 6, having them like stand there.
Yeah.
And not be the visual,
not be pushed back.
Not be the visual target on the net, so they don't feel like they have to pass all the way to the net to get it to them, So that's helped a lot. But yeah, like a poor passing team, be aggressive behind the service line. That's kind of what I would direct my team towards. Try to even the game out from the ball control side. And this is a fun team to still coach because you get to play really aggressive. And those are like that's my jam.
Yeah, the training becomes IQ stuff, right? That shot decision making, right? Taking out the outside. I would approach the offensive piece from the IQ standpoint. And then defensively, we need to be really good at picking up shots coming back at us, right? If I'm constantly going to keep the other team out of system with my decision making and maintaining control, I got to be really good at picking up shots. I got to be really good at block touches, not necessarily stuffs, but I need to positively touch the ball. And we got to be able to pursue attacks that hit the block and go. So our reaction, change of direction stuff becomes really, really important to that too. And now I'm to your point, I'm going to try and outlast them. I'm going to outlast them in transition, right? I'm going to keep putting pressure on them until they make a bad decision if I can't get a point myself.
Yeah,
This is the stereotypical scrappy team.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. And if we pass well, whoa,
Exactly.
it's even better.
Yeah.
Then you evolve up the chain in all the scenarios we just talked about.
And I think what we're talking about right now is how to play out a system in general. You
That's
know, like
true.
if you are
Yeah.
a great passing team, like what we're really saying is here's kind of how you should play if you're not having a great passing match. Like this should be some of your feedback during timeouts is, hey, we're looking to do these things now, you know, until we get back into the
So
flow
we
of
find
things.
the rhythm.
Yeah.
This is what we need to do. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, any last final statements, summaries on offense? This was a really good. I enjoyed this conversation around offensive systems.
Yeah. I think my last thing is always like in the back of my head when I'm thinking about offense, it's how am I being unscoutable?
Yep.
Okay. When you get to our level, if you can do one thing, I can take away your one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's the teams that are more balanced that are harder to prepare for because I'm not able to scheme. Now I'm strictly relying on the athleticism of my players to be able to close to different situations, right? And not know. But if I can give them information, if you set middle left in row 2 70% of the time, that is an easy decision for me to solo that right side and make my move out here. You know what I mean? So how can we avoid those situations? And I think a good way to look at it is your distribution in FPK. You need to be evaluating your FPK rotations a lot to make sure that there isn't those discrepancies of rows where it's easy to scheme and now we're in a tough spot. How do I create the attackers in all 3 quadrants that allow us to be unscoutable? Like a little toot of the horn to our team right now. We're leading the Big 12 in kills per set.
Heyo.
We don't have a single person in the top 20 in kills per set individually, right? That balance is what makes us hard to scout against.
For sure.
That and we change our lineup every week. But the balance is hard.
Yeah. And I think to that point, the goal is to score and even more so to score efficiently as possible. The last thing I'll do before we sign off here is I think for everything here to work, I think the relationship between your setters and your coaching staff is just paramount because just understanding the whys, having them be able to communicate those whys, I think really understanding it in your mind allows them to execute it with much more precision, and not have to waffle around what are we trying to do? Well, they know exactly what we're trying to do, and then I think that conviction allows the athletes on the offensive side to really be like, I'm bought in. I know what we're doing as well. I know that the setter is convicted in how they're going to deliver this ball, and then I think you create a lot more synergy and consistency in that execution. So
Yeah, I think even beyond the setter is having those conversations with the team as a whole. Like, let's learn some self-evaluating skills. Are we big bangers? No. Like, we are small, scrappy kids. All right. What do we need to do to be successful? And I'm sure they'll outline some of those concepts that we're trying to hit on. Yeah. And if they don't, then you outline them for them. And then once they find some success, they're going to buy in. But I think if your identity is that or whatever it is, lean into your identity, right? We can't change who we are physically, but we can make who you are successful in any scenario.
Yep.
So lean into it and share it with your team.
Yeah. And for all of you guys, a lot of people asked for this topic. So keep sending your recommendations in. We are reading those. We're loving that. And it gives us a little bit more specificity than where we want to add some of these next episodes coming forward as we move into 2026. So until then, happy holidays and blockheads.